Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. My 29M wife, 31F, isn't in love with me anymore after 5 years. Please help. New TL Doctor. Honestly, I don't know if anybody will read this entire thing. My wife says she loves me but isn't in love with me. The unique situation around 4-year-old infidelity had a significant impact on my personality, which is why we are here, 4 years later. It's less about the infidelity, I believe, and she has said, and more about how I reacted. She has been attending marriage counseling, but it doesn't seem to help. She is afraid to divorce, or even mention the word, for reasons I can only guess at. Please help me save my marriage. I have nothing without her. That isn't hyperbole. Part of the problem is I have cut just about everybody out of my life because of 1, the situations surrounding the infidelity, and 2, I'm introverted anyway. The basics. 29M, 31F. Married for 5 years and together for 6. We are currently seeing a marriage counselor, both together and individually. We've grown apart and she no longer is in love with me but loves me and doesn't see a future anymore. Emotionally, I am completely numb and in denial, with some small outburst of anger. No kids. In my name is an old, broken down motorcycle. In her name is our car, which has $9,000 owed on it but is paid in advance by 1 year. I've made significant payments to the vehicle since purchase. The backstory. 8 months into our relationship, I made the worst mistake that can be made in a marriage. I cheated on my wife. There was, of course, a lot of issues in the marriage, but it also significantly affected my workplace, which I eventually had to part ways with. This infidelity was not a planned excursion. It was a drunken mistake. It was blown out publicly way more than it should have been, and it was less to do with the fact of it being infidelity and more to do with the fact of who it was with, and how it happened. My wife stuck through with me and has said, I couldn't leave you during that time in your life. I love and respect and appreciate her so much for that. I did not deserve it. I stopped drinking, moved jobs, and we kept going. The job I was working wasn't satisfying like my previous, didn't pay nearly as much, and we were stuck in the same town that everything happened in. After about a year, I found the chance to work a job overseas paying a significantly increased amount above both of my previous 2 jobs combined. If anybody reads this post from my alt and goes into my post history, they will see a post I made about my mother in Raised by Narcissists, in which I specifically mention. During my time in the army, there was an issue. It had a huge impact on my self-worth, future, and marriage. I've got through it for the most part, and I'm happily married, making 6 figures and generally enjoying life despite a huge amount of self-loathing unrelated to my mother. That's what it all boils down to. My wife and I recovered, although we were near bordering on dead bedroom territory because my views on life and sex were significantly impacted by what is now only referred to as the incident. We were happy for a time, and we even renewed our vows in early 2015 and decided to move on. However, I've always held a deep resentment for what happened. The person who made it worse than it was, the blowout from that, and the aftermath. A lot of my personality traits changed. I became more paranoid. I became less trusting of other people, especially women, and I told her and myself that I didn't deserve to be happy with myself and justified my low self-worth. My wife had forgiven me for the infidelity, but I never forgive myself, and although I accept responsibility for the act of infidelity, I did not and will not forgive the other party. None of this is made any better by the distance. Although we had found a way to be together again, it never fully recovered. We never fully dealt with the situation. Over the past year, I've felt I have started making better decisions and trying to think more rationally. I started working out consistently. I lost 84 of the 95 pounds I gained during the incident and started taking St. John's wort to improve my attitude, as I don't have regular access to a psychologist where I'm at, so cannot be prescribed any medication which I have been previously, and they did work. Today, I have tried, but elements of my personality that manifested after everything happened still appear. Bits of paranoia concerning people with some jealousy thrown in because I don't really have a life where I am, I just work. She has a financially stress-free life with many friends and a large support system. I have her. I make bad jokes if I am feeling insecure with her, and she is not a big fan of them. Beginning in 2015, my wife started working on herself and improving her outlook on life, and from her point of view, I have stagnated. There have been some things that she discovered that admittedly I was dismissive of, but they were important to her, and my dismissiveness started the divide. These are things I did not realize, and from my perspective, it was a few days before I was set to come home after having been away for 11 months that she told me, "I don't see a future with us anymore." She says she has been indicating that there were issues long before, but to me, we were just having some communication issues that needed to be worked on, and it wasn't the death knell of our relationship. I figured if I came back for a bit, we could reacclimate and get on the same page and we would be fine. I was only home for 2.5 weeks, and of course, it was tense and awkward with a dead bedroom. We did some things to have some fun, and I got us scheduled for about 6 hours of marriage counseling spread across a few sessions in the 2 weeks, but it didn't help. She says she loves me and wants the best for me, but she also wants that for herself and doesn't think she can have that with me. It's been 2 months since I've been home. For reasons all to do with fear of going back and money, I am still overseas. We have done 2 Skype marriage counseling therapy sessions with another in the next week. This brings me to the point of this post and finally talking about it on r/relationships. I have casually browsed the divorce subreddit but don't want to post it there yet. I don't want that to be my reality. Important backstory. There is a large income disparity between my wife and I for our entire marriage. We have had joint banking accounts. In fact, we have had joint banking accounts since almost the start of our entire relationship. I have an odd but common relationship with money, and seeing a large number in my bank brings me immense satisfaction, and I judge a lot of myself based on how much is there. I have also mostly been the primary breadwinner and the person responsible for ensuring that all bills are paid on time every month. Now I acknowledge this attachment that I have, and I do believe that it is our money despite who earns most of it, and who makes sure that it's used to pay the bills. My wife feels differently though because of my large attachment to it. It's always been a sour spot for us. The reason I finally posted. Our lease for the apartment we both signed for is expiring, and the apartment we are currently living in is quite expensive and unaffordable by my wife if she were to be single again. She has been looking for other apartments just in case the worst happens. She found an affordable housing option which she qualified for because we are separated and her income is within their range. I've been trying to convince her to sign a 6-month lease at the current apartment or find an apartment where I could be on the lease, because, if any of you have traveled overseas, then you will know it's important to have a place of residence in the United States. With her thinking about that apartment, then legally I could be perceived as homeless in the United States. Yes, I live and work overseas, but I don't have an apartment in the US, and my status here is entirely dependent on my employment. If I lose or quit my job, then they immediately fly me back to my home of record. Well, this morning she signed the lease because she says it's all that she can find. My reaction to that was to transfer $18,000 to a bank account I created when she told me the news as my safety net. In the bank accounts that we both have access to, there is still $9,000 plus the $5,500 that I put in a retirement account specifically for her. I didn't mean for this to come across as me taking the money from her, but I absolutely understand that that's how it is being perceived. To me, if I must come back to the United States and I don't have a place to live and a wife to come home to, then I am starting over from scratch essentially, in that $18,000 is what I believe I would need. I can't deny there is a worry that she was going to do this as well in response to me. Deep down in the pit of my stomach, I do not think that she is cheating on me, and I do not think she would just swipe all the money from me either. She has never exhibited these behaviors and is an amazing person. I can't deny though that these fears exist. How often have you read of a man thinking his significant other wasn't capable of those actions but they happened anyway? I don't believe it will happen to me, but the small fear is present. I have spent 2 years in a third world country, socially isolated in less than ideal living conditions, doing a job I've been unhappy in for the sole purpose of securing our financial future. I don't want to see the only reward from doing that suddenly vanish. It has already been devalued because it may no longer be a collected fund for our future but now a split pot so that we can both start over. My time in this country has been wasted if the marriage isn't salvaged. At first, I said I would still contribute 50% to the cost of living expenses she has, but I believe that was just a poor reaction to what I perceive as her putting the first nail in the coffin of our marriage. However, I've altered and will still pay expenses and leave her income completely untouched by bills because I want nothing more than this marriage to be saved. I want to put the money back in its correct place, but as I previously mentioned, I've made this move and now she believes has a cause for concern. I'm worried she might do it to me now. I have no intention of financially abandoning her as long as I am working here. The request. Please tell me how to save my marriage. If we survived infidelity and the terrible situation we went through because of it, why can't we survive this? You cheated 8 months into the relationship. You married after 1 year. You married too early and too young. This is now the result of many bad decisions. You should probably just separate, focus on yourself and then start new with someone else. But your relationship will probably never be a happy one again. That's probably not what you wanted to hear, but it's the best for both parties involved to just separate. I agree, their relationship is broken in no small part because of him. The op needs to let go of it. The op needs to work on getting himself fixed before jumping into another relationship if he wants it to work out long term. In the meantime, op should stick to self-improvement. It wasn't a small part. It is the entire part. 3 years ago, a Redditor said the following in a thread on the divorce subreddit. Marriage is ducking hard. Love comes and goes. It waxes and wanes depending on where you are in life. The strong work through it and the weak run away. Lying about being in love for an extended period of time is, perhaps, the worst thing you can do to your partner, maybe even more so than cheating. I do absolutely need to work on myself. We have been strong before and we have worked. We just didn't finish that work, but I need to hope that we can. Thank you for your response. Being cheated on is not something you forget. It affects the relationship in every way after it happens. Some people can move on from it, but that is not the most common outcome. You may want to talk to the people on survivinginfidelity.com in the Wayward Side forum for some perspective. You're absolutely right. We married too early and too young. I have previously joked with her about that. I just wasn't ready for marriage at the time, but it happened and it was the greatest thing I ever rushed into. This is pretty much my fault and it's near insanity that she stuck by me. I know that society has accepted that men can't be taken advantage of, but I believe that's why she stayed after the infidelity. You're also absolutely right in that it is not what I wanted to hear, but I appreciate your honesty and your response. I have a fear that you are right and we will separate, but I'm not in the mindset to accept it yet. Thank you. You've put a lot of effort into trying to find a way of saving your marriage, but honestly, from everything you've said, your wife is already out the door. The behavior you describe in yourself reminds me of some of my own behavior in the past. I haven't read your post history, but you mentioned being raised by narcissists subreddit. My mum was a narcissist and I was very introverted growing up. Even in my 20s, after she died and I got out into the world, I'd still tried to flog dead horses, especially with regard to relationships, desperately trying to make things right again when the situation was unsalvageable. Part of life is about learning to accept that things don't always go your way. Sometimes things go badly wrong and you just have to accept that, learn from it and move on. You've tried changing jobs, getting counseling, etc. You've made it clear to your wife you want to fix this. What's she doing? Looking at somewhere else to live. She doesn't believe it's going to work out. If both partners aren't equally committed to making it work, then your efforts are futile. I'd also say that it sounds like you're both on reasonably good terms at the moment, able to talk civilly, etc. If you keep flogging this dead horse, try to force love that is no longer there, you are going to start resenting each other. Then it will be a battle over finances and possessions for sure. My advice to you is to end things now, amicably, and divide up your joint items fairly. I realize this is not what you want at all and probably sounds terrifying, but there is plenty of time for you to meet someone else and build a much happier life. Just remember, it isn't all about the money. Women need to feel loved and supported, and your presence is valued many times more than remote working with a high income. Good luck and chin up, things will get better in time. You've put a lot of effort into trying to find a way of saving your marriage, but honestly, from everything you've said, your wife is already out the door. Louis could only persuade, and at that he had failed. Ring World by Larry Niven. I agree. She seems right out the way through the door. I don't want any underhand manipulation, but I believe that she and I will both come to regret this immensely if we go through with it. I want to persuade her that it is worth saving and not fail. She keeps going to the marriage counseling sessions, and that's my only lingering hope. The behavior you describe in yourself reminds me of some of my own behavior in the past. I haven't read your post history, but you mentioned being raised by narcissists subreddit. My mum was a narcissist and I was very introverted growing up. Even in my 20s, after she died and I got out into the world, I'd still tried to flog dead horses, especially with regard to relationships, desperately trying to make things right again when the situation was unsalvageable. Oh boy. Yeah, that's me. I've been out of that world for about 8 years with only minimal contact and have been no contact for almost a year now. It's tough to be raised by a narcissist. I'm not sure what the world looks like when they're not only out of your world, but gone from it entirely, so I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I'm sorry to hear of her passing. Part of life is about learning to accept that things don't always go your way. Sometimes things go badly wrong and you just have to accept that, learn from it and move on. You've tried changing jobs, getting counseling, etc. You've made it clear to your wife you want to fix this. What's she doing? Looking at somewhere else to live. She doesn't believe it's going to work out. If both partners aren't equally committed to making it work, then your efforts are futile. The therapist said the same thing. If both people do not have both of their feet in, it won't work. She said she's had marriages where the situation was much worse but both parties were willing. We have 2 individual sessions and then a joint session, all within a 2-day span. I think it will be then when I will know for sure what the truth is. I'd also say that it sounds like you're both on reasonably good terms at the moment, able to talk civilly, etc. If you keep flogging this dead horse, try to force love that is no longer there, you are going to start resenting each other. Then it will be a battle over finances and possessions for sure. I agree. In the beginning, I would say asinine things such as just be in love with me again. But I learned quickly that it would only make it worse. My wife has said much of the same. She's worried that there will be resentment and she wishes we could still be in each other's lives if it ends. I don't see that in our future. If our marriage goes south, it would be time to subscribe to Digital Nomads for me and find out personally that traveling minimally isn't going to fix my personal problems. My advice to you is to end things now, amicably, and divide up your joint items fairly. I realize this is not what you want at all and probably sounds terrifying, but there is plenty of time for you to meet someone else and build a much happier life. Just remember, it isn't all about the money. Women need to feel loved and supported, and your presence is valued many times more than remote working with a high income. Good luck and chin up, things will get better in time. Thank you for your time, and your response. At the very least, reading your post gave me the kick in the ass I needed about the money transfer. I went ahead and divided it up equally down to the cent. Our current liquid assets are evenly split. I was being an idiot and probably made things irreversibly worse. Thank you. The theme of the first few replies to this post is that I am beating a dead horse. Maybe I posted her too early, or maybe I posted too late, but I only see her and our fixed marriage. A user by the name of /u/darksolaris once said, "Marriage is ducking hard. Love comes and goes. It waxes and wanes depending on where you are in life. The strong work through it and the weak run away. I need and want to believe my wife and I are strong. We have been through worse issues which I have caused, and we somehow came out a little further ahead. I blame myself for this all, don't mistake it. I just wish I realized sooner so that I could be acting to fix it instead of reacting. I made the most grievous of errors in our marriage, but that doesn't mean my wife is blameless or has never made mistakes. It's just that I've made larger mistakes and I have trouble finding faults in her. I love her. Mistakes are one thing. Fault is one thing. Breaking the foundation of the marriage is very different." We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.